Alright, welcome back. Today we wanted to get on and do a video about a go-to rifle setup. Is that
Yeah.
yeah. So the philosophy that we have behind this is that whatever your scenario is, you're grabbing your one rifle that you're confident in, that you're familiar with, um, or that, whatever, just the general rifle that you would just grab whatever your scenario is now.
Mhm.
If you live more rural, like I do, maybe you're grabbing one to just be ready and be prepared and have it with you. If you're living in an urban environment, maybe you're grabbing a rifle to go somewhere, that if you have another location that is your quote unquote bug out location.
Mhm.
Um, it's just kind of the your mainline rifle,
Yep.
your day to day, if you will.
All the chips are down. You can only take one.
Yeah,
Which one it is?
yeah. Like I said, it's just like the mainline rifle, like the one that is your general, you know. So, because I have a couple different rifles for different scenarios, or if I'm working with other people, then I might
Mhm.
opt for something that's longer or shorter or whatever the case may be. Or if I'm trying to do, you know, ultra compact CQB, so
Mhm.
you want to go whichever one, what would you
Yeah.
grab?
So I'll
And
start.
walk through what's on there,
Mhm.
why you would use that, and why you have it set up the way it is.
Yeah. So I'm gonna go with this guy right here. Um, the philosophy behind this gun is it's a little bit of a do-it-all, in my opinion. Um, 14.5, 13.7, those types of barrel lengths are really good for mid to long range. You can CQB all day with them also. Um, and thought process too with the ACOG, no batteries. It's got a BDC. It's a fixed bore power, but it's literally designed to be shot both eyes open anyway. Is it as fast as an EOTech or an Aimpoint? Probably not, but you can still do work indoors or outdoors or CQB or long range. Anything, really. Um, so that's mine. Um, also have a Griffin Armament 30 cal can, 30 SDK on here, because I do shoot 30 cal suppressed also. Yeah, so I guess I'll just do butt to tip because we'll do things opposite from everybody else. I have a Fab Defense GL Core stock on there because I love supporting Israel. And it's a pretty good stock. It's kind of similar to like the B5 stock as far as like the cheek weld. It's got QD sockets. The only gripe that I have about the QD sockets is that they're not anti-rotational. That's not really that big of a deal, to be honest. Normally there's a Magpul MS1 sling on here, but I took it off for the video,
How does that make any sense?
just so it wasn't in the way so you could see it better. I have an Aero Precision enhanced buffer tube on here. Inside is a standard carbine weight buffer and a Geisley braided buffer spring. This is going to be your one that you hate, but it's got the PRI gas busting charging handle on it.
It's not even ambidextrous.
It's not. It's not even ambidextrous. But so I got that. Magpul Pro backup iron sight. Obviously Trijicon TA31 ACOG with the kill flash. It's got the American Defense mount. Sits it up a little bit higher.
And back.
Yep. Sits it higher and sits it a little bit further back because the eye relief on a ACOG is what, 1.5 inches? Something like that. It's really short. Aero Precision lower, Armalite upper, 1-9 twist barrel. That's primarily because I really don't shoot much else besides 62 and 55 grain. If I were to set this up or have a rifle that I was shooting, 77 grain, 69 grains or whatever, I'd have a shorter twist barrel, or however you would put that. But fixed front sight post, just classic. It's good. Midwest Industries front sight post rail. Can't remember the exact model on it, but Magpul ladder covers, a Streamlight ProTac rail mount 2 with a 100 Concepts light cap. I really like that. Yeah, and then, like I said, my Griffin 30 cal can. But the coup de grace for this rifle for Tristan will definitely have to be the BCM Gunfighter grip and the GG&G little shorty broom handle here that I blade off of anyway.
So I guess why did you go with a quad rail versus opting for, say, M-Lock or something more, in that?
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
What people would probably call modern.
Yeah. Because there's not anything that can't come in Picatinny, but there's stuff that still doesn't come in M-Lock or key mod, things like that. Robust. These Midwest Industries rails of theirs, especially their combat rails and these FSP rails, are just pretty stout. So if there was something of an issue where it's getting dropped or bashed around, I'm really not too concerned about this breaking or deforming. Other than that, I mean, it just kind of looks, I like the part too. It actually balances this rifle out pretty good too, which is important to some people.
Yeah.
I mean, it should be important to everybody, but especially with the can in the front, I don't know, it just definitely, this rifle's very balanced. I mean, you've shot this thing.
Yeah, it's a smooth shooter.
Yep.
What do you have? Did you talk about the safety selector on that one? Is that just...
Oh, I have an Ambi safety selector. I think this is a Colt. I'm not 100% sure though. I bought that a while ago. I like Ambi safeties, just because usually I throw it off safe with my thumb, but then when I'm coming back on safe, I flick with my
I do the same thing
with my trigger finger. But again, too, if you give it to somebody who's wrong-handed,
yeah. And then he'll sit there and autistically flick it the whole time that we're trying to record videos and.
Yes, I'm sorry. Autism, it's a real thing.
Okay. So, what do you have with the Griffin on there? Do you have it on a A2 bird cage, or do you have it on the one that they send it with?
So this one, I actually just have it
on the bird cage.
On a standard A2 bird cage.
Yeah. Obviously, one of the huge benefits of those cans.
Yeah. Yeah. These gate locks are awesome because, I mean, I have on my 300 Blackout, I have the actual comp that came with it on there. I have another 5.56 that has a specific Griffin mount, but you don't actually need that because it can just hook into the blank firing adapter on a standard A2 bird cage.
Yeah, that's super convenient because, I mean, A2 bird cages are $7 to $15, maybe high end $25, whereas I run Surefire on a lot of my stuff, and each one's costing me at least $100, like 150 sometimes. So
one thing I will say though too is if you are going to throw it on a standard bird cage, if you don't remove the crush washer, at least make sure that it's concentric coming out, because obviously you don't want to blow your can up. It's a little bit more forgiving on this because obviously it's a 30 cal can and obviously a 5.56 rifle, so there's a little bit more leeway in that sense. But specifically if you're doing caliber specific, you definitely want to check concentricity.
Yeah, that was when I put my 5.56 version of that can on my 14.5 Colt, the 6940. And I put an alignment rod down there. It was making contact with the can just because, when Colt put on that bird cage, they were expecting you to run the bird cage and not put a suppressor on it, so I'm sure it didn't. And then I ended up putting a Surefire device on there. And it wasn't an issue with the threads, it wasn't an issue with anything, it was just the muzzle device itself and the way it gets crushed on that crush washer as you tighten it down. So, yeah, I would definitely make sure.
Because you don't want to go out your first time on the range with a can and have to immediately send it back in for warranty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
What about you? What's your go-to setup? You can only grab one.
My go-to would probably be my 11.3.
11.
I'll say 11.3, 11.5 interchangeably, just because. So the reason I would go with this one is because, one, I have lots of time behind this gun and lots of rounds. So it's not that I'm not familiar with my other ones, but it's just I'm really comfortable with it. When I shoot this, I recognize the recoil impulse. I like everything. Like it's just like, you know, when you drive your same car every day, like all the little nuances you just know and feel, and all of a sudden like something's different, you instantly can pick up on it. So it started its life as a totally different gun, but for the longest time when I ran it, it had a 10.5. I had a 10.5 barrel on here with a Midwest quad rail. I eventually, you know, I mean, the reality is 10.5 is not ideal for 5.56, and not that 11.3 is so much more ideal, but is a little bit better. So I went from a 10.3 to an 11.3, just to give myself a little extra velocity, a little extra dwell time, a little extra capability. Now,
An inch does matter.
An inch is a lot. And like yours, you kind of went more the approach of like a general purpose, like, oh, I can do CQB and I can do long range, and this, like, my thought process is, like, if I'm going to be using it, like, this thing can reach out to 300 yards if I wanted it to.
Right.
And it's, in my opinion, it's hard for me to justify, you know, engaging something much farther than that. And if I wanted something where I just have to grab it and, you know, go, and it would be this. It could be slightly controversial as I walk through some of the parts based on other people's thoughts and opinions, but I really like it for my use case. Now, this is, like I said, this is my like day-to-day mainline go-to. Like if something happened, this is what I would grab. So I have T-Rex arms sling on here. Just, I like them. They're lightweight, nothing fancy. I mean, a sling's a sling. I really like these Blue Force Gear ones as well, but I just have this one here just to kind of keep it a little lighter. BCM QDs on here. So far, all my rifles have them. I haven't really had any issues for the most part. I did have, this one's collecting a lot of dirt because at one point, like, I actually couldn't push it, but that's because I shoot outside, I run it, rain or shine, and I think it just got a little bound up. A couple drops of oil in there. But other than that, these BCM sling swivels rather, have been flawless.
Pretty bomb-proof.
Yeah. B5 Bravo stock, so it omits the storage tubes from the regular, has a slightly slanted butt plate, so you can, you know, theoretically, you know, roll it up over armor and stuff like that. I do have plate carriers and stuff like that. I have also in this one, it has the Aero enhanced buffer tube with the, you know, the drain holes, and it's 75 T6 aluminum, so it's quality. Little funny story about that is, this came, like I said, it started its life as a real cheap kit, just as a beater gun in the back of my truck, and it had what I'm assuming is a 6061 buffer tube on it. And I didn't run into any functioning issues, but like one day I was looking at it and I'm like, looks like my buffer tube is ever so slightly off. So yeah, replaced it with proper 7075 T6 aluminum buffer tube on here. I have just a standard, whatever, who knows what company, castle nut end plate that I staked myself. I have an LWRC ambidextrous safety on here, and I really like the LWRC ones because there's no screws or anything. You put in the cam of it, and then each of these is roll pinned in place, so I don't have to worry about screws backing out on me or being impossible to get out because I had a CMMG ambi safety at one point on one of my lowers, and I went to take it off to put on another LWRC because I really like them, and I couldn't get his little tiny Allen head, and it like stripped out. So I literally had to take a Dremel, slot the screw, and then back it out. But so that's what I have there. I have the Magpul K2 grip, like I've talked about before. I like it. It's more vertical. It gives me that, you know, just
like
that
BCM gunfighter grip.
Yeah, anything but that grip actually. And then in here, I think I just have, I have the oil bottle, whatever, you know. I would probably, it's one of those things where you could put in like a replacement bolt or stuff like that, like put in there what you want, batteries, whatever the case may be. But that's just what I have in there. Oil,
Skittles,
keep things going. Magpul bad lever because it's awesome. So in here I have the Hyperfire enhanced duty trigger, the heavy gunner version. So, and I don't run, it comes with 2 springs. I run the heavier spring because I don't want to have, I'm going to dry fire, but I don't want to have, all of a sudden I get on, starting to get on the trigger and need to get my shot. I want it to be a little bit
deliberate.
Yeah, like there's virtually no travel here. Like there is no travel, but I think it tests in about 5.5 pounds. So it's really nice. It's got a full size hammer on there. It's not like reduced or lightweight, so you get a nice firm hit on those primers. I have a forward assist on here because I like forward assists, and I would rather have it and not need it than need it and not have it. The Geisley ACH charging handle, it's just my go-to, my favorite charging handle. The reason I like that is not for the gas busting capabilities or anything like that, but I like that it's ambi, I like that it's quality, I like that it's got just enough where I can get a nice firm purchase. Like it feels confident, I guess is how you would put it when I go to grab it. Like it doesn't really matter which side I grab it from.
And it feels solid. I like how the curve in it too. Like it like swallows your finger. Like you feel like no matter how crappy you might have grabbed it, like it ain't going anywhere.
I had the GCH on here at one point in time, and it kind of takes off this little like up part of how it kind of swoops up a little bit to make that like U shape. I didn't like it. I didn't feel as confident, especially like if I wore like a bigger glove or something. Like it felt like I could slide off, whereas this kind of like your finger goes into that little cradle.
Yeah, it's.
I have Magpul rear, Magpul Pro backup iron sight, keeps it nice and low profile. I have a POF, God Bless America with an American flag, just metal dust cover on here, nothing crazy. I have my company logo. While I'm talking about this, I have this is a Azimuth BCG sold by Bad Attitude Department. Now if you notice how it's shiny on the back here, so when I got it, it had a like more bulbous end to supposedly like prevent carrier tilt and all this weird stuff, and on a DI gun that's non-existent, you don't need to worry about that. It's not a thing. It's not piston gun where it's getting rammed and you're kind of having that tilt down effect. So I gave it to a guy that I use for all my machining and just had him mill that off, because it was when the issue that I had with that my buffer tube being ever so slightly off center, this would actually drag inside that buffer tube. So that's actually how I first found it, was because of this BCG. I have a Spikes T2 buffer in there, so it's that tungsten powder. So instead of having weights clanking around, it's like a dead blow hammer where that sand or that powder comes forward and really gets that bolt locked up into place. So I really like those. And then anytime I run one of my guns that has free weights in it, and I could just hear hear it jangle, like sometimes it just like annoys me. So then I end up putting another T2 in just because.
Bougie.
Yeah, just like I don't know. In here, I think I have a Damage Industries like one of their silicone springs, just a spring. Like I don't get too hung up in the spring department. Some people will buy the Geisley braided wire Super 42s because whatever, I don't know. So I don't.
Cool. They look cool.
But the reason I go with the T2, um, so the Spikes T2 is more like the Colt H1, same weight wise. So their T1 is like your a carbine weight. So your 3 ounce, this is a T2, so it comes closer to 4 ounces. But I like that because I usually run suppressed. I run a short boy, so it usually has a little bit more gas on here. So it just runs really nice with a can on there. Kind of slows it down a little bit. Moving up to the optics package I have on here, so I have an EOTech EXPS3. I just like the big window, the donut of death. And like I said, some of the parts may be controversial on here. Like this might be one of those controversial ones because people want to talk about how like, oh, there's EOTech and their horrible battery life. Yeah, it doesn't have the battery life of 5 years like some red dots do, but that's just the technology. But it doesn't.
You all are changing them out after a year anyway.
Yeah, most people are changing them out every year, but so this one, it just has, you press the down arrow to turn it on. The red dot will, or the holographic will turn off after 4 hours on its own. Or if you press the up arrow, it'll run for 8 hours on its own. And then shut off. So some people are like, oh, I don't want my dot to shut off. Like that doesn't bother me none because anytime I grab the rifle and I go to do what I need to do, I check my optic, I check my chamber, you know, so I just don't see it as a point of contention. Like, I'm gonna do whatever, and then like, oh, I don't want it to shut off. Like, you press up or down, you just reset the clock.
Right.
So if you press up, it'll run, you know, continuously for another, you know, 8 hours. You press the down, whatever. So.
And like for me, like for mine with the XPS3, I literally click it as I'm throwing the sling on. So.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like if I grab this out of my safe, I'm gonna grab it. I'm gonna check the optic, whether it's a red dot or it's this. So for me, it doesn't matter. It's not anything that I'm gonna do and different. And so the battery life for me is not an issue. And then the cool thing is if I pressed it down after 4 hours, like say I, you know, was just doing a administrative range day, it shuts off, and then it's off. Like it sits in my safe and it's off. Like it doesn't bother me that it's off. Like if you grab a weapon without doing a basics function check on it, that's on you. Like I would every day at the beginning of my patrol shifts, I would literally function check or I'd chamber check my handgun and everything, even though when I left my last shift, I put it in my locker, or because I left my duty gun at work because I had my own other guns. Like,
right.
Even though I put it in my locker fully chambered, like I knew that, but I still did that every single shift. It's the same thing with this. Like if you grab your stuff and you don't make sure it's ready. So anyway, that's a long tangent over EOTech. It's just like some people get all bent out of shape, like, oh, it only has a 5,000 hour battery, or not. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
I don't even know what it. I don't even care to look.
It's just maintaining your stuff.
Yeah. I couldn't even tell you. Like some guys will nerd out and tell you exactly how many hours the battery. I don't even know. Because I don't care.
Setting 6.
Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, behind that, I have the Vortex Micro 3X magnifier. It's one of those things where I can take it or leave it. That's why I like it. I used to have the Unity set up on here. I took it off. I ran it for 2 years, and then I took it off because I like being able to get on my gun actually and get a good cheek weld on here because I can run the gun so much faster. And I don't know, it feels way better. Like before when I'd be like up here, it kind of felt like I was like floating and kind of hoping, like, whereas if I get down on it, like.
And if you had a nod setup, it might be different, you know.
It might be. Like if I had my way, I'd somehow get this to like a 193 height, but it just doesn't exist with this setup.
Right.
And like I said, like I like that I can just quickly remove this. I don't need to run it on my rifle, so I can lose weight if I really want to.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like, holographic sights magnify really well in my experience, and maybe based on my eyes, maybe other people have different experiences, but I just like that I can flip that there. If I want to see a little farther, maybe make a more precise shot, and I'm good to go. So it's another one of those things where I'd rather have it and not need it than need it and not have it, but it's not really a need. Moving forward, I have the Mark IV 10-inch Fed rail from Geisley with the upgraded, this is their, the next generation version of it with the steel, hardened steel inserts. I had the previous version that didn't have these. It was just the aluminum, and not that I had any issues with it, but well, I had an issue with it as far as like the coloration, and I sent it back to Geisley, and then they sent me this one. And it wasn't like I was like, oh, my colors don't look good. It was just like, it was just one of those things where you buy a rail that costs as much as these do.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, like, one whole side of it was like blatantly discolored. And I just reached out to them like, hey, like, and they were like, yeah, sure, send it in. We'll get you a new one.
Like Daniel Defense in their machining marks.
Yeah. Daniel Defense has gone downhill. Anyway, but yeah, I like this. I like their barrel nut. I like their lockup. I like it's a really strong rail. It has Picatinny in the places that matter, and then it has these M-lock-ish slots everywhere else. So quality rail. So really like it. Here I have an Arisaka finger stop because I have one on here, but like I don't see the point in the big old broom handle style grips. Like this is the Magpul one, and I literally just cut it because all I do is use it as a indexing point for my hand. It just gives me somewhere to bring the gun up and pull it in. So that's why I like these. And then the cool thing is, like with this, I can kind of adjust. Like if I want to move back some more, I can just put it in between different fingers and do what I need to do based on because I don't care who you are or how strong you think you are. Like you shoot or run the gun for a long period of time, you're going to see yourself after a long training day. Like your hand's going to naturally creep back as you get tired because you're stronger the closer you are to your center. So it gives me that capability. Here, the Cloud Defensive Owl, another probably controversial point of the rifle because it uses rechargeable batteries. I have, I don't know, 6 of them on deck, generally ready to go, recharge at all times.
Yeah.
I just like this thing. It's a little heavy, it's a little big in comparison to some other options like the Arisaka one I have on here, just this little tiny guy. But you can flip it, run it different sides. It's all integrated into one unit, and you can watch videos. And I won't, we don't need to sit here and bore people with it, but like these things are darn near indestructible. Like they do some crazy stuff to them, and they just keep going. So
why they don't make them anymore is beyond me.
My guess is, like I said, we've talked about it before. I just think that it didn't probably sell as much as the other ones just because of its size. Yep. It's a little bigger compared to like some of your other options. I like them on short boys. When you start getting onto longer guns, I like having a tape switch that I can bring back to where my hand naturally lies versus, or hitting the back of certain lights. So I think it's just big, and that's why people don't like it. And the fact that it only uses rechargeable batteries has
probably
certain. It literally says 18650 battery only. So I don't know. Going forward, I have this. This is a Midwest Industries fixed front sight. I just like it. It's one less thing that I have to worry about flipping up, and obviously I can flip up with this being the ESPX3, the lower 1/3 height. I can bring this up, and I have that, and I don't have to worry about flipping up my front sight. Not that it's a big deal, but it's just one less thing that I have to worry about. Like all of a sudden, if I'm on the gun and I'm like, oh my thing, I can just boop, it's up, and I don't have to worry about that.
Even my guns that I have to put sights on that don't have like a front sight post like that 14.5, fixed front sight post is the way to go. Yeah. Because if you're already having to flip up iron sights, like there's no reason you can't just have a fixed front sight.
Yeah, I mean, I'm indifferent on it. The reason this exists on here was because from when I had the Unity stuff on there, it didn't obstruct my view at all. So that's why I like having all my other ones have the Magpul flip up, or yeah, flip up fronts as well. When I moved to the Unity, you can't see your sights anyway. So I
Yeah.
put this on here because it was never in my sight picture. And then, all that stuff being QD, the ESPS3 being QD, I could just flip it off
Crank
if
it off,
something
yeah.
happened. Same with my magnifier. And then I just flip up my rear and go. Now that I drop that stuff, maybe I will switch to the Magpul, just because I like having my window be as open as possible. Like, it's not distracting to me because I'm used to shooting with it, but it is there. So
I'm sure you've noticed too, like the one nice thing that I love with the fixed front sight, especially the HK style with the rounded um, shroud around the front sight post, is with the XPS3, that donut sits like right at the top edge of it, right?
yeah, it kind of sits like
Yeah, but it's
the
essentially
two hash marks on the side kind
Yeah.
of sit over these wings.
Yep, love it.
So
It's a quick reference point too. If again, like he said before, you should be checking your stuff anyway. But if God forbid you grabbed it and didn't turn your optic on and you were immediately having to engage right now, it's a quick reference point too.
it can be, yeah.
Yeah.
Barrel on here is 11.3 ballistic advantage handset profile. The thing is literally amazing. It's a tack driver, and the handset profiles have like a continuous taper, and it's awesome. Like, the government profile is all weird and it beeps up behind the gas block, and then it's like, this is actually like, it has the meat where you need the meat, and then it doesn't where you don't. So on here I have the Surefire closed tine. I don't like the war comp or the 3-prong. Take it back. I like the war comp if you're not running a can. If you want a Surefire device because you want a Surefire device, but you can't live somewhere where you can have a can, get the war comp, because that thing does a lot as far as like you time it to whether you're right-handed or left-handed. Like, I will say it works really well in that regard. But then when you have those ports up in here and then you actually have a can on there, like, it just
carbon locked really
it gets all jacked up. And then I don't like how there's videos on the internet where you can see where, like, there's nothing to disrupt the muzzle blast from like the 3-prong. So actually what you'll see like this almost like 3-prong pattern that gets burned into or starts to chew at that first baffle in a lot of people's cans. So I like this, how it kind of, it breaks it up a little bit. And then, I don't know, some people don't like the ting that 3-prongs make. You're literally shooting a gun. Like, you think that a ting of a muzzle device is going to make a difference, but that's a whole nother tangent. But so obviously with the Surefire device comes the Surefire can. This is the RC2. I have the Mini right there, and that's one of those things where it's going to be one or the other. Like, if I want to be ultra compact, maybe I'll run the Mini. But if I want to get the most, sound reduction, I'm going to run the full size RC2. And there's really, a lot of people are like, oh, the Mini is so much smaller, so much lighter. Like, it is by, like an inch and a half. Really not that much.
No.
So I'd rather go for the maximum sound deadening, and the weight doesn't matter to me. That's one of those things where people will get all spun up on like weight. They like, this is heavy, that's heavy, having magnifiers heavy, and this is a heavier can. I set my rifle up how I want it, how I like it. The weight's a secondary thing to me, because I'd rather go for my capability and my package that I like to run, and then whatever that weight is, I'll deal with it. Now, I'm not going to be like just dumb and have the world's heaviest rail on here because of whatever, and make like a 14-pound rifle, a 14-pound 11.3. Like, that's not going to be like.
Yeah.
We weighed this before
Still
we came out here.
Yeah.
And what was it? A little over 8 pounds.
Yeah.
So
8, 9
without the can.
Without the can.
Now it's probably 9 knocking on the door of 10. But that's just how I set up, and some of my philosophy behind why I do what I do. I don't know if I talked about it, but I have the Superlative Arms gas block on here.
No.
So yeah, adjustable gas block. So these ones are super cool because they, for the first like 18 clicks of adjustment, they work like a normal adjustable gas block that restricts the gas flow. From 18 and farther up to like 42 clicks, it goes into what's called bleed off mode. So it takes the extra gas that I'm not using and literally just dumps
Dumps it out the front.
which this thing with this can on here, or either of the Surefire cans, I have it maxed out all the way open, and it literally like doesn't move. Like it feels like cheat codes when you're shooting this thing. Like I'm serious. Like it just is so
Right.
smooth, and there's plenty of gas to run the action with the can on. Now, one detriment to that is how I have it set up. Is if I take the can off, then it
You got a bolt action.
to an extent, yeah. So that's something that I know going into it, and it's not. Superlative Arms does a lot of great things, but one thing that I will say about this is they use hex key as their adjustment. They give you a long tool to go with it, but like I
If you
ended
just
up,
had a flathead or something.
yeah, I ended up
nicer.
stripping out the hex key just from like adjusting, like trying to play with it, like barely a couple times of adjusting it. So I once again took my handguard off. I took a Dremel, cut a slot into it, and now I just use it with a flathead screwdriver. Like why they didn't do that since day one, I don't know.
If you're listening, Superlative.
They're not. They don't care.
It might be.
I even reached out to them and were like, hey, like I stripped out the thing, like, and they were just like, they're like, oh, go buy a different tool. Like the tool that we send them with are kind of junk, and I'm like,
Then why send them?
yeah, like it
It is what it is.
Yeah,
right?
I don't like whatever. Like I really like their bleed off gas block, but that kind of put a sour taste in my mouth.
Mhm.
But other than that, it's good to go. I love them, and the cool thing is they have a spot where you can drill, so you can pin this gas block as well.
Mhm.
I have this one just double set screwed. My barrel is double dimpled. I have knurled set screws that actually bite in, and I have high temp locking compound on those screws too. And I've never had an issue. And there's a lot of rounds to this gun. Like
Mhm.
you run this action,
Like ball bearings.
it literally is like just because it's been shot so much. So
Silky smooth.
yeah, it really. I mean, it's to the point where like right here you can see it's raw aluminum because it's just so many casings have bounced off that shell deflector. But yeah, that's my go-to and why I have it set up the way I do. And yeah, close second though I would say would probably be this my LWRC piston gun, but we won't get into that too much here. But this one,
That's another video.
yeah, this one kind of avoids some of those issues about having that goofy adjustable, like suppressed, unsuppressed. So
Yeehaw, piston guns.
yeah. So with that said, you have any final thoughts on that? Anything that we missed? Anything that we didn't talk about?
I feel like I could have went into a little bit more detail on mine.
Yeah, maybe. But,
No.
all right. Well, as always, appreciate you guys watching, and live free or die.
Live free or die.
I feel like I got one.